Okay, Volume 5. That's where we're at in the Bible story. We are now at Part 3, Story 2, and it says, Baby hid in the temple. Okay. When good King Jehoshaphat died, much trouble came to the kingdom of Judah, even as it had come already to the northern kingdom of Israel. Jehoram, the new king, was different from his father. He married Athaliah, A-T-H-A, wait, Athaliah, the daughter of the wicked king Ahab, and she had turned his heart from God to Baal. The first thing he did on ascending the throne was to kill all his brothers. Such a dreadful thing to do. Then he went on a walk in the way of the kings of Israel. Because his sin, God left him to face his enemy alone. When the Philistines and the Arabians came up to attack Jerusalem, no divine ambushments were set against them, nor did any chariots of fire come to the rescue. Instead, the enemy soldiers broke into the city, raided the king's house, and captured his wives and all his sons, save Uzziah, the youngest. Soon after that, Jehoram himself died of a very painful disease, having reigned only 8 years. Uzziah took his father's place on the throne and reigned only 1 year. His mother, Athaliah, Athaliah was his counselor to do wickedly, so that he did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab. When his uncle, the king of Israel, asked him to go to war against the Syrians, he did so, only to be killed in the fight. Now a strange and terrible thing happened. When news of her son's death reached Athaliah, she set out to kill all his children, her own grandchildren, no doubt thinking that if there was nobody else to take the throne, she would be queen. She almost succeeded in her wicked scheme and would have done so, for the present but for the present of mind of the children's aunt Jehoshaphat. 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 Yeah, Jehoshaphat. Beth. Beth. Well, Beth sounds better. Hearing of the sad fate of her nephews and nieces, this good woman, whose long names means that she had a vow to serve Jehovah, grabbed her 2-year-old Joash and rushed him to the temple building. Being the high priest's wife, she knew the place well, and putting the boy and his nurse to an out-of-the-way bedroom, locked them in. She guessed that nobody would be likely to find them there, and nobody did. So it was that little Jehoash, like Samuel of old, grew up in the temple. Nearly 6 years he lived there, being trained in the ways of truth and right by his aunt and his uncle. Meanwhile, the wicked Athaliah, thinking that all the royal seed were dead, ruled as she pleased, trying to get the people of Jerusalem to worship Baal as did the Israelites in Samaria. Unfortunately, Jehoiada, the high priest, Jehoiada, Jehoiada, I like Jehoiada. The high priest was the true servant of the God of heaven. He hated all the evil the queen was doing, and he knew better than anyone else that she had no right to the throne. Quietly he gathered his friends around him, telling them in secret that the true heir was still alive. I doubt whether he told anybody just where the boy was hidden, lest the secret get into the ears of the queen. But he thought enough so that no doubt the truth of his words. Gradually the spirit of revolt spread. As years passed, more and more people made up their minds to rid of this usurper and put the rightful king on the throne. At last the plot was ready. Jehoiada called the leading conspirators to him in the temple. Then, when all were present, he brought out little Joseph, now 7 years old, for they to see. How they cheered and cheered. Jehoiada now put a crown on the boy's head, while everybody shouted, "God save the king! God save the king!" Hearing the noise, Queen Athaliah hurried over to the temple to find out what it was all about. To her amazement, the place was filled with people singing and shouting for joy, led by trumpets and the temple choir. Of course, it has the picture of the two ladies running to the hiding place in the temple. Okay, one more time. Let's get back to the story. Okay, then it says, suddenly she caught sight of the little boy king, wearing the crown and royal robes. Who could this be? She wondered. Had she not killed all her grandsons, everybody who might have had a claim to the throne? Treason, treason, she screamed, but no one came to her aid. Instead, some of Jehovah's men carried her out of the temple and put her to death. With the wicked usurper out of the way, a great proclamation was formed, and young King Josiah was led in triumph to the king's house and placed upon the throne of the kingdom. He must have looked very small and frightened in that big chair, but everybody was glad to see him there, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet again. And then it has a picture of the little boy getting a crown on his head by a high priest. There it is. Okay, that is story 2 of part 3. And like always, it's break time. So I'm going to break and then we'll get back to the next story in just a bit.